Hey everybody, Coach Kame here, and we're going to be talking about how broken Killjoy is going into 2023. And it's something people have not really been talking about at all, and I don't know why. I also don't go on Reddit at all, so maybe people are freaking out there. But let's take a look at the comparison between Champions 2021, before Chamber was added, to Champions 2022. So clearly, right off the bat, huge drop off pretty much everywhere. Killjoy wasn't really getting played on Breeze or Bind in the first place, and that same thing got reflected over in Champions 2022. But for maps like Haven, Icebox, Split obviously didn't get played in 2022, and Ascent, and even Fracture, Chamber pretty much took over those maps for a few reasons. One, Chamber was broken as hell. Two, Breach, and the KO nade buff. So Killjoy completely fell out of the meta because KO nade and Breach Aftershock could completely destroy her ult at any point. That's why we see such a big change on Haven from 88 to 25, because when Breach came into the meta, his Aftershock just completely shut down any sort of benefit you could get from Killjoy. Same kind of deal on Ascent, although she didn't see that big of a drop off. And the exact same thing for Fracture. Killjoy has always been really good at Fracture. But because Breach came into the meta pretty quickly after the map came out, she completely dropped off. Chamber came in, Cypher played a little bit at Champions 2022. But overall, mostly because Chamber is getting nerfed, or he has been nerfed at this point, and Breach's Aftershock and KO's nade can't destroy her lockdown anymore. Although KO's nade, if you land it directly on the lockdown, it will destroy it. But regardless of that, Killjoy is back, baby. Okay, so let's start off looking at Haven and why exactly she's going to be good now. So it should go without being said, Chamber is not going to get any playtime on any map anymore, especially since Breeze got removed. Breeze was probably the one map he was still decently viable on. Maybe Icebox. I might do a separate video about that, but because he's so out of range from his trip, he can't place a trip on the opposite side anymore, which completely removes any of his flexibility. He can still get aggro, and he might work in some comps, like for Cloud9's team. Yeah, he's probably still going to play some Chamber, but for most teams, it's just not that viable anymore. So let's take a look at some of the original Killjoy lockdowns that kind of were the main reason why she was so good on Haven. So this one, obviously pretty decent for taking A. Most people actually put it here. You can hide in Heaven if you're playing towards A, but overall, you can't break this now unless you have shock lineups with Sova and you combo that with the Breach Aftershock. This thing's not getting destroyed. Same with an A retake. Can't really counter that anymore unless you have two people throwing lineups. If attackers are trying to take B or Garage, this lockdown is going to be very strong again. Same thing here for taking C or even taking B with this lockdown. And retake C, same thing as well. You get completely locked out of sight at this point. And Cypher, he has some utility on Haven, but overall Killjoy is just going to completely come to dominate the map. So coming into Icebox, the main thing we saw coming into 2022 was a lot of people switching over to the G2 comp, which I'll place all of them out here. We had Killjoy, we had Sova. Obviously, you have to have Viper in there. Where's she at? Sage and Chamber. So the strength of this comp mainly came in on attack. Once you planted bomb, you had Sova shocks, you had Killjoy mollies, and you had Viper mollies for bomb. Holding flank, obviously super easy. You have two sentinels who can have utility to hold flank. And the strength on the defense side was pretty similar. You could get aggressive with Chamber. You could lock down one side of the map with him. And then the other side, you have Killjoy mollies. So pretty difficult to play against. And this comp is only going to get stronger, honestly, because now that you can't use KO mollies to get rid of the lockdown anymore, Killjoy is going to get even better. Like, you know, this kind of lockdown, retake B lockdown, taking B site lockdown. All of these are going to be a lot stronger now that KO's nade has been nerfed and Killjoy's lockdown has increased in health. Alright, so Ascent is, like I said earlier, one of those maps where Killjoy fell out of the meta, mostly because Chamber came in, he was broken. Breach was getting played a little bit, but mainly KO nades. started getting pretty strong, and people started figuring out lineups for typical KJ ults, like the one in Tree, like one in B main, and she fell out of the meta because of that. But because now Chamber is nerfed, and I'm just going to sound like a broken record here, you can't really destroy the lockdown very easily anymore. So, and Cypher was, there are people who are absolute nerds and can figure out fantastic Cypher setups, but Killjoy, considering her utility is so strong now, she's going to be the pick for Ascent now. And Fracture. So, in my opinion, this might be one of Killjoy's strongest maps, just because she has some absolutely insane ults she can use. So, for example, this is not one I saw get used often, but this one you get completely all of a site. You toss a smoke up nest. There's literally nothing they can do. They can play nowhere near you. You can pop one down in sands too if you want, so that you can block off anyone peeking from door. But you have the entire site and you have a decent amount of spawn control off of this. You can even do some weird stuff where you try to take spawn control with this. It's like, Killjoy is extremely strong here. Taking B, same sort of thing. You have literally all of the B site for free. The only thing that can touch this lockdown is Breach's Aftershock. So it's not like you can bounce a Sova Shock, which no one even plays Sova on here. You can't bounce a Brim Molly down there. There's no real way to counter this anymore. And same thing on defense, where she has some okay ultimates. Like if you get here on A and you defend this well, you can retake that pretty easily. A good B one would probably be here. You guys flank through Arcade because you know they're maybe you know they're going to breach ult B, so you and your team decide to flank through B and you use this ult, and they have to come take really disadvantageous fights. They have to fall out of tower to counter this ult in order to break it. So that, I'm not going to get into the defense setups because I don't feel like it, frankly. But trust me when I say Killjoy's setups are pretty strong on here. You get completely shut out, whereas with Chamber, you can get aggressive with an op once, maybe twice in a round. But Killjoy, you have consistent utility, and you have consistent stall, you have consistent ability to make retakes happen. And that is what is most important in this game. The ability to stall them, let your teammates come flood in so they can support you with utility, and then you win. And last but not least, definitely not least, Pearl. So obviously this is a new map, and right when the map came in, there were a lot of people who just said, yeah, this is immediately a chamber map because we have this B-long area here where you can pretty easily hold a long angle. You can TP pretty much anywhere and have a really good sightline onto the enemies and play with your trip towards mid-door. But now, if you're around here, even around here, the chamber trip deactivates. So this whole benefit of playing chamber as your hardcore B anchor is now no longer there. And we all know chamber is not that good on attack anyways. So there's not really a big benefit to using him anymore, which TMV, I'm sure some of you guys might know him, he talked about a long time ago, back when the map first came out, that this could be a really good Killjoy map. And it definitely can. Just look at these ults. So we'll start with this B ult. If you're trying to retake B, this lockdown is so broken. There's literally nothing they can do about it. They have to cross, the attackers have to fight through this tiny choke point to get in here and break it. That's not going to be possible. Same thing with this A site take lockdown. There's no way they're getting around this tight little corner with 3 or 4 of your teammates sitting here. You can easily smoke them off, and boom, free site. Her utility, like I said earlier, fantastic for stalling. Rotating is such an important facet of this game that we're going to be falling into a meta where there's going to be a lot of stall utility, and we're going to be waiting for a lot of rotates to happen rather than taking individual gunfights. At least that's how I see things going. So to sum things up, Killjoy stonks are way up. Chamberbrains, learn how to play a new agent, for the love of God. For everybody's sake and ranked, please. And if you're going to learn anybody, learn Killjoy. She will be the strongest sentinel going into 2023.